Good afternoon, and thank you to our hosts for this afternoon, the Tysons Regional Chamber of Commerce and First Stage. As you probably know, for over 40 years, Tysons was built as a highly successful car-dependent business district. And then in 2010, the Tysons Plan was created. It's an ambitious blueprint to transform Tysons and has a 40 to 60 year timeframe. Over the short period of the last 10 years, newly built neighborhoods have been emerging or growing around the Tysons metro stations, and they're helping create a new sense of place right here in Tysons. For example, as of the beginning of this year, 86 acres of new parkland have been proffered, along with schools, community centers, and so much more. Beautiful new neighborhoods are starting to take shape, and they include Borough to the west that features restaurants, a Whole Foods, outdoor space, and a movie theater. To the east, we have the envisioning of Scotts Run, a new urban place with parks, open spaces that integrate a Stream Valley Park, and will soon see the Capital One Hall, a public-private partnership just to its north, opening next fall, that will bring international and local talent right here to Tysons. To help move beyond these immediate metro station developments, we will need to address our last mile challenge, and we'll need even more innovation to help us get there. One recent example that we could consider is the partnership that Fairfax County launched for an autonomous electric shuttle right in the Mosaic District that brings Relay, a partnership with Virginia and Dominion, to our community to help try to address this challenge. We must also commit to bringing more affordable and workforce housing to Tyson. As of August of last year, 752 units have been proffered and 4,200 units were approved to be built. But we know the majority of our workforce in Tyson still cannot afford to live near or in our community. Though progress has been made to make Tysons an inclusive district to live, work, eat, and shop, we still have a ways to go. Together, we will be able to create a dynamic community that serves us all. And I look forward to hearing the many innovations and ideas that we will be hearing this afternoon. Thank you for participating, and I hope we can get together in person next year.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sal Glassner, and I am proud to serve as CEO of the Tysons Partnership. Thank you for inviting me today to share with you some thoughts about Tysons. What makes it such a critical area within Fairfax? How are we evolving? What is its future? And what role does Tysons Partnership play in all this? Now, I realize I'm speaking to an audience of Tysons stakeholders, many of whom are also members of our partnership. I don't need to persuade you about the value Tysons represents, but I'd like today to set Tysons within a larger context. So give me a minute to share my screen. Okay. Chris Lineberger, a noted urbanologist, teaches at George Washington University and is also affiliated with Brookings, has said that Tysons is the most important placemaking experiment in America. That's a pretty bold and grand statement. If you're uncertain or skeptical, I hope that by the close of this presentation, you'll understand why he makes that statement. By sheer size, scope, and scale, what we are trying to accomplish in Tysons makes other placemaking arenas look very small. Overlay the Tysons geography onto a map of DC, and you'll see that Tyson stretches across east to west, 4 square miles, 2,500 acres. And for reference, National Landing is 1 square mile, or 640 acres. Roslyn is not even a fifth of a mile, or 104 acres. In fact, add up the areas of all the District of Columbia business improvement districts, and you get acreage that is just slightly greater than Tyson's 2,500 acres. We are the 15th largest central business district in the United States, between Cleveland and Minneapolis. Now consider what we started with. Ribbons of concrete roadway, surrounding acres of office park and surface parking, anchored by 2 regional shopping destinations. This was not your typical grid of streets needing a little infill and sprucing up. So on to a little history lesson. Anticipating the arrival of 4 transit station stops in Tysons, halfway between the nation's capital and the capital's international airport gateway, the county took a look at this nexus of employment and destination retail, also a hub for interstate and intra-regional vehicular traffic, and with strategic foresight, adopted in 2010 a 40-year urban vision that tries to make good on the promise of Tysons as Fairfax's downtown. Just look at all that's happened thanks to the plan, thanks to follow-on actions by the Board of Supervisors, and to substantial investment by both public and private sectors. In terms of the built environment, more than 3 million square feet of office has delivered, nearly 5,000 residential units, and nearly 500,000 square feet of retail. There have been also major infrastructure improvements, such as the Jones Branch Connector, which links 2 distinctive areas in Tysons and makes the metro more accessible to a larger population. It also features bike and ped lanes so that not only cars save what would otherwise be a longer, circuitous route. The arrival of the borough last year, featuring the largest Whole Foods on the East Coast, gives you a true glimpse into the urban multi-use streetscape that is the future of Tysons. Tysons Corner Center Plaza, which opened in 2014, was an instant hit and is a place where people gather, relax, grab a bite, or just hang out, even in today's socially distant times. And judging by all the buzz, we hit life's high watermark just a week ago with the opening of Wegmans at Capital One Center. But there was one thing missing from the comprehensive plan. In addition to its effects on people, families, and the very fabric of our communal lives, the pandemic has upended established work-life patterns, caused major economic dislocation, and injected massive uncertainty into all our modeling and planning for the future. So let's take a look at some basic numbers. Tysons, a place that houses fewer than 2% of Fairfax County residents and takes up less than 1% of the county's geography, generates a whopping net fiscal impact on the county equal to the combined annual county-wide expenditures on public works, libraries, and parks. It generates more than 7% of the county's general fund revenues and is home to nearly 18% of the county's private sector jobs. Tysons is a jobs magnet, second only to DC as a regional employment center. With commercial valuations growing by more than $1 billion each year, Tysons is truly an economic powerhouse for the county and for the region. This is not a cliche, it is a fact. And keeping that perspective in mind, it is clear that Tysons holds a key to economic recovery from the pandemic effects for the county and for the region. Now more than ever, Tysons has an outsized role to play in sparking and sustaining economic recovery. All the ingredients that persuaded the county in 2010 to adopt a plan for transit-oriented investment and urbanization in Tysons shout out the need to double down on those investments and goals. But people ask me, what's going to happen to office? Those 80,000 office workers in Tysons, they're all going to stay home. How will hospitality recover? And what about those malls when everyone is now shopping online? So I don't have an answer. I don't know. And you should stop listening to anyone who tells you they do know. The crystal ball is murky. But I can tell you this. After work from home since mid-March, I can't wait to get back to the office. So maybe we don't have 80,000 in their offices 5 days a week. And maybe offices will need to be reconfigured to give each individual more space when they're physically there. I don't believe office is disappearing, nor do I believe that retail is going away. Our shopping arenas have proved pretty adept at adapting to changing consumer patterns and doing what needs to be done to attract people to their spaces. And let's not forget residential. This, in fact, is the fastest growing element in Tysons. 5,000 units delivered since adoption of the comprehensive plan and lots more in the pipeline. Tysons' soft urbanism, coupled with its central geography, may prove to be irresistible to people looking for a place to live and grow roots. Resi is likely to turn out to be at the heart of Tysons' continuing evolution as a city, which is something that the county's comprehensive plan actually anticipated and encouraged. And that's the other point. Never forget that cities need time to grow organically. It's not just about the pace of development. It's also about changes in human live, work, play patterns. The comprehensive plan sets out a 40-year roadmap, but centers of urban living evolve and grow over a period that is many, many times 4 decades. So let me tell you a little bit about us, the Tysons Partnership. We were part and parcel of the county's plan from the get-go. We were called out in the comprehensive plan as an implementation entity. The county encouraged Tysons landowners, employers, retailers, developers, and others to come together and form, together with the county, a public-private partnership. In those early days, the county saw in the partnership a forum that could help sort out and expedite resolution of land use, density, and zoning issues that were then a primary focal point. We've evolved to take on a role that is well past those early land use days, serving as a catalyst for community engagement, place activation, and placemaking. We are a doing organization dedicated to building a living and livable community in Tysons, acting as a thought leader in urban space, a convener, and locus for coordination and integration between and among the public and private sectors. If I were to summarize in a couple of sentences, what is our mission? Simply put, it is to tie together what otherwise might easily be a collection of beautiful, gleaming real estate projects, each one on its own island. We create a shared platform that gives our stakeholders a reason to engage and work with each other to make a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. And what exactly do we do? So business improvement and community improvement districts and similar type organizations are widespread and successful throughout the country and also overseas. Like all of them, we work to advance a community-led vision using a toolkit of programs and initiatives that are designed to engage, to build brand, to enhance place, to integrate public and private spheres. So I could break this down into 4 core work areas. Research, planning, and economic development. So for example, right now, we are engaged in building what we call a data hub, collecting, analyzing, and modeling economic, demographic, and mobility data that is specific to Tysons. That data will populate an interactive dashboard that will anchor our website and will be used to drive a growth strategy planning process, which we expect to launch early next year in cooperation with the county and with the Economic Development Authority. Placemaking, activation, and management. So this includes events, creating conditions that help transform physical space into emotional place. A good example is the public art installation the partnership enabled, which then helped transform a blighted corner of Tysons into a setting for what became the wildly popular Tysons Beer Garden. Communications and place branding. So we've been working for more than a year to shape a Tysons city brand image and toolkit that will anchor our stakeholders' efforts to attract people to live, work, and play in Tysons while building the world-class brand that attracts the investment needed to fuel this thriving urban setting for Fairfax. We're coordinating our city brand efforts with the county's EDA so that our Tysons-focused branding reinforces and is reinforced by the branding aimed at Nova and Fairfax more broadly. I heard somebody mention a few minutes ago, America's next great city. So it is true that we have used that to brand ourselves for a number of years, but we are going to be repositioning Tysons away from that brand, which some say has gotten a little tired over time, and we're going to be launching a completely new approach to positioning Tysons for the future. And of course, intertwined with everything is transportation and mobility, which is all about moving the needle on access to, from, and within Tysons. We were designated by the county in 2014 to be the Transportation Management Association for Tysons. Now, that role includes delivery and coordination of travel demand management services, but it's so much more. Being creative in programs to encourage multimodal connectivity and behavior patterns. Now, look, there are lots of challenges ahead. Let's talk for a few minutes about those challenges. Here are 4 big ones that are front and center for Tysons Partnership. Connecting the 8 neighborhoods of Tysons, fostering a multimodal future that makes Tysons accessible and easily navigated on foot, on a bicycle or a scooter, and also by car. So when you step out of your apartment and you can see that office building that you need to get to by noon, you can actually get there without necessarily jumping in your car and turning on Waze. Making our living spaces within financial reach of people who work in Tysons, and not only the top tier of office workers or executives. Cities thrive on diversity and diversification. The junior admin or teacher or retail worker or hotel worker who wants to live within walking or shuttle distance of their job should have that option. A system that depends on workers commuting in each direction for 90 minutes is not going to succeed in the long term. Urban space is not only about apartment living and walking to an office, a store, or a restaurant. It's also about stretching out, reflecting, or picnicking on a patch of green, or being able to toss a ball around without hitting a building. But green space in urban centers does not necessarily look the same as green space in areas that are dominated by large single-family homes. The goals may be similar, but we need to be smart enough about design and placement so that the uses are optimized for their context. And finally, let's make the place zing, meaning have a soul, be vibrant, create places where people want to gather and feel like they're part of a community. Social distance is not a permanent condition. Our Tysons Partnership has accomplished a lot since we started out, a period we call Tysons Partnership 1.0. We've been amping up our game in 2.0, especially with the infusion last year of matching public-private investments that enable key initiatives in which we are presently engaged, like the data hub and branding activities that I mentioned earlier. I'm excited to tell you that the credibility, leverage, and assets we've accumulated over our collective history positions and prepares us to take advantage of the opportunities and to address the challenges ahead. Our Tysons Partnership Board understands that we are today at a decisive crossroads. We need to reconfigure our organization and business model in a way that optimizes community engagement and enables the resources and people necessary for us to address the challenges. Just yesterday, our board adopted a resolution affirming our commitment to the task of transitioning our organizational model to a more robust, more deeply resourced, and more capable form that we are calling Tysons Partnership 3.0. And we've set out a timeline for working together with our county partners to get there by January 2023. Through this transition, we will accomplish public purpose goals, driving asset value, establishing and promoting distinctive urban identity, being the glue that facilitates cohesion, community identification, and engagement, enhancing and activating public place through programs, coordination, and community participation, and fostering a mobility ecosystem that optimizes connectivity within Tysons and between Tysons and the surrounding region. I delivered this same message just earlier today to a committee of the County Board of Supervisors, and we look forward to moving forward together toward these goals. Once again, I want to express my appreciation to the Tysons Regional Chamber for inviting me to participate in this terrific annual event, and I just appreciate being here. Thank you all for joining us.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Karen Cleveland, and I'm the president and CEO of Leadership Fairfax. I've had the privilege of working in this community for over 30 years, and it has been so remarkable to watch the entire Fairfax County develop, but especially to watch Tysons turn into the city of its dreams. For those of you who have attended this event for the past 4 years, you might remember that we had 3 separate panels. One that looked at living in Tysons, one at work, and another at play. The crossover between all of those areas has been remarkable, so this year we decided to combine them all. So let me introduce our panelists today. Starting from my right, please welcome Mike Whatley, who is Vice President of State and Local Affairs at the National Restaurant Association, where he advocates on behalf of the restaurant industry in all 50 states. Additionally, Mike oversees the Restaurant Advocacy Fund and the association's grassroots programs at the federal, state, and local levels, including the annual Public Affairs Conference. Prior to working at the association, Mike worked in Congress for the House Oversight Committee. He graduated from Claremont McKenna College with honors in government and received his MBA from Georgetown McDonough School of Business. Welcome, Mike. Next to Mike, please welcome Jonathan Griffith, who is the Managing Director at Capital One Center, the growing mixed-use destination adjacent to the McLean Metro Station in the Tysons East neighborhood. Jonathan and his team are responsible for the public and retail spaces of the development, to include the recently opened and mentioned Wegmans grocery store, the planned Sky Park, aptly named The Perch, the stunning corporate center, arts venue Capital One Hall, and the Watermark Hotel. Welcome, Jonathan. Next, please welcome Tony Hudgins, who is a lifelong resident of the DMV, born in DC, raised in Reston, and now living in Columbia Heights. Tony has an eclectic career. He attended Indiana University, where he studied economics, and then followed in his dad's footsteps and received a JD from the University of Toledo. Returning to the DC area, Tony began practicing law with the Arlington County Attorney's Office. After 3 years, he joined the Arlington County Commonwealth Attorney's Office as prosecutor. In what he calls one of the best professional moves of his life, he enforced the Commonwealth's laws protecting Arlington residents for 9 years. Tony left practicing law to pursue an entrepreneurial opportunity in hospitality. He and his friend opened several bars and restaurants in DC and in Arlington, Virginia. During this time, he did double duty, holding business development roles in executive recruiting and publishing while working full-time with the restaurants. I share all this background because today Tony is with us because of his role in leading partnerships and enterprise solutions for a team for Transit Screen. His group builds and manages the company's strategic growth through complex relationships and expands the company's business with corporate workplace professionals seeking to use transportation as a means to improve employee experience. Welcome, Tony. And finally, please welcome our host for today, Alex Levy, who is the artistic managing director for the award-winning First Stage Theater here in Tysons. Alex stepped into this role following the founder and will chart the course for First Stage in this critical next stage. No pun intended. Prior to joining First Stage, Alex served as the artistic director of Ballybeg Theater in New York City and the managing director of the Watts Village Theater Company in Los Angeles. He also served as a resident director at the Road Theater in Los Angeles and as artistic associate of the Savage Players in LA. Prior to moving to the West Coast, Levy spent 7 years as the artistic director of Pegasus Players in Chicago. Alex holds a BA in political science with a minor in literature from the University of Rochester and an MFA in directing from the University of California, Los Angeles. A truly talented, rising star in the industry makes us feel lucky to have lured him back to the East Coast. Welcome, panelists. We're so glad to have you here. I have to tell you that I had the opportunity to meet with all of them ahead of time, and I could tell you that this conversation could go on for hours, but we will respect your time. So let's dive in. Saul just painted a beautiful picture of Tysons as a reimagined urban center. Since the 80s boom of the corporate world, Tysons has been the largest business district in all of Virginia. Times are changing now, and changing Tysons into the vision of the downtown, the urban center for Fairfax County is not an easy feat. A lot of things to consider. So let's talk about live, work, and play, and let's dive in first with the live component. This question goes out to all panelists. What is the number one success driver that you see in Tysons if it is going to be a place where people really want to live and stay? Mike, let's start with you.
That's a great question, especially in this time frame of COVID. And I think Tysons has an incredible opportunity in two key areas. First, space, and second, flexibility. You know, if you look prior to the pandemic, when millennials and Gen Zers were looking where they wanted to live, it's where the action was. It's where restaurants were. It's where the arts were. It's where there was vibrancy and a real sense of community and a sense of cool things happening. Now, I come from the restaurant space. Restaurant industry is changing, unfortunately, and there are serious challenges that the industry is encountering that it's never seen before. And flexibility for restaurants is key. Right now, restaurants are earning 44% of their revenue from outdoor dining opportunities. If you look a year ago, it wasn't even close. So the ability to have extra space, to have flexibility, to allow restaurants to adapt means that restaurants will survive and thrive in this environment. And ultimately, when people are looking now and eventually post-pandemic of where they want to live, you want to have that vibrant restaurant scene and that vibrant culture. And I would be lying if I said that every restaurant that's around right now will be around in 3 months. So it's important to be able to have that space to expand and have that space to be flexible for restaurants so that they're here to enjoy and to attract people to this area in the future.
Great. Thanks, Maude. Jonathan?
I think it's really choice, and it's the diversity of choice, whether it's the personal choice about where you eat, the personal choice about maybe where you enjoy a movie or where you enjoy an event, but creating that diversity of choice so that people have options, and options within their neighborhoods, options within their community. They're not traveling to be able to experience a different culture, a different diversity, a different place to eat. So I think that having local choice is really what's going to create Tysons as a burgeoning community.
Great. And Tony, how do you look at it?
Yeah, I think how I look at it and how we would look at it from the perspective of transit screen, it's taking the combination of what both Jonathan and Mike have stated, which is you want the things that people actually feel engaged by, want to go do and partake in. You also want that choice, but you also need to really work very, very critically on how people perceive access to those things. Those things in terms of how they get access will be making sure that they feel that they're not constrained by one particular mode in order to get there. With respect to Tysons, and I've experienced Tysons for a very long part of my life. Grew up in Reston. I remember it being the place that was solely about 123 and Route 7, and the only way you perceived it was getting in your car as the main way of accessing it. The change that will have to continue to happen is the perception that multiple modes will always give you access to all of that diversity, all of those things that you want to engage in, and also start to create a sense of neighborhood, which I think success for Tysons will be when you look at the area where Capital One is as its own little neighborhood, the area where the borough is as its own little neighborhood, so that people feel like I could stay here Or if I want to leave at a moment's notice, I have access to all the things that will get me to the east end of Tysons.
Great, thanks. Alex?
Yeah, I think all of that is right on. And I think Saul did such a great job of giving us a history lesson of the things that have happened should make Tysons what it is at this point. And he talked a lot about transportation and about access to grocery stores. And those things all matter. But when it comes down to it, when I think about moving my family, when I think about raising my children, I think about the community. Where do I want them to live? How do I want to intersect with my neighbors? How do I want to come together? And in truth, that's the thing that's come, I won't say last because there's a long road ahead, but it's just now coming out in Tysons of really what that means to come together as a community, what it will mean to actually and be with other people, which we are all missing right now, to be with other people in our own community. Because everything else we can leave and we can get from Tysons and then go home to somewhere else, right? But if I want to live in Tysons, I want to be with the people who I'm living with. And so I think the restaurants are going to matter that way. I think culture and quality of life are going to matter that way. And really thinking about what it is to be with each other and where those experiences are that allow us to be together are going to be the key to bringing people to live, actually, in Tysons, as opposed to coming and going from Tysons.
Great, thank you. I know Saul talked about how many residential units have already been delivered here, and I know based on the master plan and the work the county's done, that with zoning, there have been opportunities made for people of all income levels. But I'm curious how you see I was going to use, don't have the right word right now, but the variety of types of people. Who do you see living here in Tysons? And what is, how do you visualize that working? You mentioned your family. Alex, do you see this as a place for people of all generations and types?
I think it's going to be, but I think we're still figuring that out, and I think that's an important thing for us to be thinking about. I mean, we still have an affordability issue here, right? I mean, I work in the arts. My staff works in the arts. It's hard for us to live in this community right now, but that's changing, right? We're still looking at not a lot of easy access for families right now. But what I've seen in just my 6 years here are all of these residential buildings going up. The young people who live just down the block at the Center, just behind us here at the Adair, weren't here 6 years ago, right? And those are huge residential buildings that are largely filled with young folks who previously might have lived in the Navy Yards, previously might have lived in other parts of the DMV. So it's coming together. We need to really be honest about that, make sure that we are creating access for all kinds of folks in our community, and that's still a challenge ahead, but you can see it transforming almost on a daily basis, I think.
That's great. And Jonathan, what are you seeing at the east end of Tysons there?
Well, I think you're spot on. I think that this notion of affordable housing and being a community for all is what really is going to be important to make Tysons grow and evolve. We have such a diverse workforce at Capital One, and I think that really our living space needs to echo that. I mean, when I think about the Capital One Center community now, we have cashiers, we have grocery workers, we have restaurant workers. We have folks that need to be able to have access to all of the things that make Tyson special and to not have to deal with access issues getting to and from their places of work. So I think that affordable housing is going to be a real space that through the county's leadership, through private developers and partnerships, that we can really make an impact on the quality of life and create Tysons as a community for all.
That's great. And so, Tony, what do you see from a transportation standpoint that you could see would help various folks, whether it's age or socioeconomic level, to make it easy to live here?
Looking at it again from the world where we sit when we look at transportation and transportation information, what I think really has to begin to happen, and I think there are efforts to do that, but we have to continue moving in a direction that allows people to be efficient with what they actually want to develop. I think that plays a large role in terms of giving people an opportunity to have access to certain housing. Location plays a large role for people. I think that Jonathan gave a great example about. There's going to be a diverse kind of socioeconomic class of workers within a particular place. you need to be mindful of the fact that maybe they can't go out and purchase other things like a car to be able to get to work. They need to have other transportation options that are supported by the community and the transportation infrastructure that runs through the community. They need to have access to different modes. And you have to think about how do we situate those things together in a way that allows people to be within the same community, as Alex said, but also being able to take advantage of a multitude of different, I'll just call it for what it is, a lack of a better word for it, but buying into the other living options that are within that same geographic area so that everyone can be a part of that community and everyone can partake in all of the different advantages that the community offers them.
Yeah, what you just described there too, I think is one of the success factors for any town that's being built like this, and that's to innovate, right? To really think beyond what has been done or what seems right in front of you, but to really innovate in order to meet the needs. So Mike, from your standpoint, you're a data guy, you've been a policy guy. What are you seeing in your industry about living close to where people work or any trends along that area?
You know, I think that anything that can be done to make housing of all different levels and all different varieties is really essential. I mean, and transportation is also key. I mean, I'm from the area originally. I remember I lived in the Maryland side, coming over to Tysons and driving to it, shopping, and leaving. And it's totally different now. It's walkable, it's bikeable, you have the metro, you have cars, and having more and more transit options allows folks to really want to be here and want to be able to be where the action is, but also, to the previous points, go from one end of Tysons to the other. If they want to use a car, great, but they might not have to. They could walk, they could bike. I think all of that makes it a more attractive place to live. And you combine that with different types of housing, really makes it just a place where people can live and also want to live.
Fantastic. So Alex, you've already occupied a really impressive space here in Tysons, but as we're evolving, and if everything goes according to plan, you will be relocating to the View. So talk to us about that a little bit. And you use the word connected, and you use the word community. So how do you see First Stage playing into helping the View to be a livable, connected community?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really an important part. I think it's what the arts do really well. I think it's what live theater does really well. Is it becomes a place where people come together. It also becomes a place where people go for experience, right? And so for those who haven't been here, and I hope you all come here once it's safe to do so again, we're currently located above an auto garage around the back of an industrial park, really unseen, near the metro, but unseen to the street. And yet, it is a sort of testament of what the arts and theater can do, right? So, 15,000 people come through these doors every year on a normal year, and it's because theater remains and the arts remain a sort of destination place to be. Furthermore, those of you who are used to going theater know this from your own experience. We rarely just go to theater when we go out to theater. We know from studies that there's about $24 that's spent for every ticket at a theater outside of the theater. That's per person, because we go for drinks, we go for dinner, we pay for parking. Oftentimes we'll go, in Tysons here, people come up to First Stage and then go shopping at the mall afterwards because, if I'm coming to Tysons, let's do it all. And so really we think of ourselves as being a hub for the community, a driver for the community in all senses that way, as an economic driver and really most importantly as a cultural and social driver for the community.
Great. Well, thank you so much. This is really bookending Tysons, if you will, with First Stage being at the View down on the western side, and then, of course, Capital One with big plans around the arts in your development up there. So Jonathan, talk to us a little bit about, too, how you see the arts. A lot of people might think you two are competitors, but I know, having spoken to both of you, you really look at each other as supporting the arts and the importance of them in your community.
We are. I think you're spot on. I don't think there's any competition here. There's such a deficit of arts and arts venues within the county, within Northern Virginia, that having options, having different places that people can come and gather is what's really going to be important. I think that what Alex and First Stage are doing will be a very nice partner in what Capital One Hall is trying to achieve. in some fashions, the venues are very different in terms of their size, in terms of their configuration. And I think there's going to be a really kind of incubator type style environment that occurs to really elevate, promote the arts within the county. I do want to give a quick shout out to Arts Fairfax. I think that they are really going to be kind of the spine, the thread that brings, arts to the community, that really starts to make some really special connections. And we're just so excited to partner with them as Capital One Hall opens through our relationship with Fairfax County to really just be that facility, to be that organization that helps to grow arts for our community, because I think culture is really kind of the missing link. When we spoke about live, work, and play, there's kind of that third, that sixth sense almost, that's culture and the arts, that's really going to bring a community together and cause Tysons to thrive.
Great. That's a perfect place to pause right now for another word from one of our sponsors. How you see the arts contributing to bringing companies here and employees.
Yeah, I think that's really an important thing. I've been to all of the Tysons 2050 events, and I always really enjoyed listening when they were separated. I'd enjoyed listening to the work and the live aspects. And one of the things that I hear over and over again from our business leaders in the community is that their number one challenge, of course, is recruiting and retaining talent at their companies. And they are the first to say that the key to that is what they're doing when they're not at work, and what the social fabric is at work, that we can create good jobs and we can create opportunities to get to their job through transportation. But the thing that really keeps people is the community in which they live and work. And arts and culture are, I think, the answer, the key ingredient to that. That's what keeps us vital in our communities is the opportunity to not just show up there for work and leave and go home, but to be part of the community that we work in.
And I think we know this from the work that the Economic Development Authority does, that the diversity in our region, which includes the diversity of the arts along with everything else, is a big driver for the employers who are looking to relocate here. So Mike, talk to us a little bit about that, how you see the restaurant industry and the workers. We're in the work session right now, so how's that changing, and what are you seeing for the future?
I think there have been a lot of changes, and our industry is changing more than a lot of industries have, and it is changing in terms of the specific tasks that workers are doing and what restaurants are functioning as. I mean, I look back to the beginning part of the pandemic when restaurants were focusing as almost grocery stores. And I was getting my groceries at home from founding farmers who was delivering groceries to me. So you had workers who really were changing their traditional roles. They might have been a bartender, they might have been a food runner, but instead they were a delivery driver. So there was that flexibility there, and the workforce was changing. Post-pandemic, I think we're going to continue to see that in our industry, of the roles of restaurant workers in the restaurant, and even the hours they're working and the hours that restaurants are open are going to change quite a bit. So again, going back to the previous comments about flexibility, I think that really is key for our industry.
I could see a tie-in with the transportation that Tony was talking about earlier too, or the mobility of this, with more people with takeaway services and all of that, and how do you move that around in an effective way? Tony, do you see that as part of this creative solution?
So I think where we are with the pandemic is a little bit of a challenging time, because it presents a quandary in terms of what we think will attract companies to a particular geography, how they will view recruitment, how they will view being a part of the ecosystem where, restaurants, arts, shopping, entertainment, living all plays a role in who they are going to be in that ecosystem. the way we look at it, I think what we are expecting is there's going to be an evolution of how companies look at a couple of different things. It's going to be where I need to be situated based on the type of workforce that I have. Where do I expect to recruit those people from, looking at that type of workforce and the culture I want to have in that workforce. It also will be a right sizing of real estate based on who really needs to be in the office and who doesn't need to be in the office. The answers to those, I think, are still TBD altogether. But I think what companies are going to look for is that flexibility of being able to say, I'm situated in a place where I know that I can build a culture with the right types of people that live within an ecosystem that do a couple of different things for them, which are, having culture means you have to have people who are both as interesting, as they are themselves, as they are interested in the other things that are going on around them. That means they have to be able to go and, have interest in the arts, have interest in the dining scene of a particular community. That means they also have to come from those places too, because I think we all have to be realistic. I worked in restaurants. You have people that work in restaurants. It's probably not going to be their jobs all their lives, but at the same time, you want to foster an environment where some people might say that will be my job. That is the entrepreneurial thing that I want to go after. So having that pool, if you will, again, lack of a better word, but having that pool that you can say, whether I am recruiting from that or whether I'm continuing to build on top of an existing workforce, I have these things to offer, and I always also have these things to get from that particular geography. Location then really kind of plays, for us at least, the main role in helping people understand, where do I want to be and what does the environment of where I am add to the workforce that I want to have.
When you think about the end game of what Tysons could look like with number of people, and you think about the talent and then the mobility of people, not physical mobility, but from job to job or to grow their careers, I mean, you could stay right within Tysons and spend your entire career here, which is pretty exciting. So Jonathan, talk to us about Capital One. So Capital One is a bank. People don't often think of banks as being very innovative or progressive, but Capital One has been just that, very forward-thinking, not just in the work, but also in the development of, that you're undertaking right now. So talk to us about that mindset and how the vision came to be.
Yeah, well, Capital One's been in the Tysons area for over 20 years now. We made a decision in the late 1990s to locate, kind of just plant our flag and to purchase the property that Capital One Center sits on today, and to develop that campus out and grow it as the headquarters for the company. With the introduction of Metro in 2014 and really building on the Tysons Comprehensive Plan, it was a real opportunity for Capital One to rethink our plan development. Capital One as a company was growing. We're particularly at the time and still continue to grow as a fintech, really embracing technology in terms of how people bank. And in the recruitment and retention of talent, as a technology company that happens to be in the business of banking, very important that we offer to our associates the amenities, the vibrancy, the community that other technology companies, are embracing and offering to their own employees. A lot of the talent that we compete with, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google, how do we create a diverse, vibrant, energetic environment that causes those people to want to come work for Capital One, want to come locate themselves in Tysons? Really I think that the development that you see going on, some of the really exciting elements are first and foremost, again, for that recruitment, retention of talent, but also are a way for Capital One to give back to the community, to create foster this sense of community that, brings in new and fresh ideas. And we think that what we're doing and what's happening in the rest of the Tysons area is doing just that.
So having spent time with Capital One around the country, I used to do that when I was a consultant, that most of the properties, which are very large campuses, are pretty self-contained and in fact separate from an urban-like setting. So how are people adapting or adjusting to this, and what are they seeing as the pros and cons between this lovely urban setting?
Well, I think in Capital One, we offer choice in the way people work. And so that might, at a macro level, you might look at the geography where our offices are located. I mean, we have offices in Manhattan, in Richmond. Our West Creek campus is a very suburban campus. I think we're kind of in the middle of the two now in Tysons. So a lot of our associates have the ability to work in those different locations. And look at what their family situation looks like, what they value in terms of their lifestyle, creating those places to work. Then you start to drill down into the workplace, creating very vibrant workplaces. And I think our office facilities here in Tysons are just that, if you've had a chance to visit. But that give the associate the choice of how they might work in a given day, whether it be at an individual workstation. Maybe it's attending a meeting in a large format corporate center like Capital One Hall, through a lot of our amenities. It's really about creating that flexibility and that choice that I think is a recognition of the diversity, again, of our workforce.
So for all of you, talk about the people that you're working most closely with, and not just because of COVID, but what lessons are being learned here that you want to learn from your employees or the folks that you work collaboratively with that will help inform where we go, in the next 20 to 30 years from a work perspective? I was going to let anybody take that. Tony, how about you start?
Yeah, I think, and just because it's near term for us, the partnerships that we have worked on that I think are really changing how we evolve as a company and how hopefully we continue to add more value for our customers is really about better understanding a journey of how transportation for a person literally from their home to their work begins to change, and what they actually do within the built environment also changes what that workplace experience actually is. We are a company that really started out in the world of aggregating information to be displayed typically on TVs and then moving on to a mobile platform, and now kind of evolving into a world where this is also helping people make decisions about their commuter benefits, helping employers get that message out about their commuter benefits and then build a trip plan around that. And where we ultimately expect to be is, beginning to providing the insights to the owners and operators of real estate, the occupiers of real estate, to help them understand how they can begin to help people that, want to come and work or live in a particular place, understand what their options really should be and make choices that are good for them based on what those are. In terms of, and I'm probably going a little far off the field of what you asked, but those partnerships in terms of learning from different companies who fit in those spaces, whether they're mobile, tenant experience mobile applications, workplace experience mobile applications. We never really saw ourselves playing in a space where we were talking to people that would start providing us toll data, helping us connect to the relationships that we now have in the commuter benefits or benefits administration space. All of those things have changed and evolved to give us a much broader view of where transportation really fits within the landscape of location for real estate and the workplace experience and the living experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Jonathan, you already talked about the fact that at Capital One you offer people a whole variety of opportunities to connect and for their work style. I know just anecdotally, talking to people now that we've been through COVID, there are folks who can't, like Saul said, can't wait to get back to the office. And then there's others that are, introverts are loving this, leave me at home and I work a 12-hour day and feel really good about that, and then have time with my family. So when we talk about the 21st century workers here, I'm thinking about, so we talked about the culture and the arts in that, coming from the Leadership Fairfax perspective, we know that leaders who can connect to community are become better leaders in that too. Are you seeing this happen in Tysons, that people are connecting more to the sense of community here? Or is that still a vision and a dream?
Well, I think it's going to evolve. I mean, kind of back to where Tony was leading, I think two things that are really impressive coming out of the environment we're in today are people's ability to adapt. Some of the ways that we adapt and the ways that we're working has been really remarkable to see. I mean, this was in March. I mean, there was a conversion in just several days' time of all being in the office for Capital One to everyone working from home. It's really remarkable, again, to see that. And I think resiliency is kind of another big thing, a theme that I see coming out of this. The ability for people to continue to push forward, in terms of their mission, and to find creative ways to do that. I mean, I think about the restaurant industry. I mean, some of the things that you're seeing these restaurants do with the streeteries, these other spaces that you mentioned, is 8 months ago, we would have never imagined seeing that type of resolve. So, I think that there's a lot of opportunity that's going to come out of what we're seeing today.
Great. And Mike, I know when you and I had a conversation earlier, you said that the restaurants that are doing the best now were early adapters of technology so that they could leverage their business. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Most folks think of restaurants as being a relatively low-tech business, and to a certain extent they are. But if you think about takeout a year ago, you were calling your favorite restaurant. They were probably just putting the order into their computer. You were probably walking inside and paying with cash or paying with a credit card, but it was it's lots of friction in that transaction. Now, you go on an app, you order the food, even from your favorite independent restaurants, not just chains. You go, you order your food on an app, your credit card info is already in there, your phone number is in there, you pull up, you text them that you're there, and the food gets put in your car, and you never actually have a real interaction. The restaurant industry has gotten high-tech overnight, and that has made it a lot easier for restaurants to interact with their customers. But if you look at restaurants that are doing the best right now in terms of technology, it's ones who have the ability to communicate with their customers even when their customers are at home. It's elaborate lists in terms of emails, it's phone numbers for text messaging, it's elaborate social media presences. Those restaurants that have that strong customer base and that customer base that they can communicate with via technology, those are the restaurants that are thriving. And I think you do see a lot of them in the Tysons community, ones that are able to reach out to customers because they have that relationship and tell them, hey, we're working on this special right now. It's Thursday, it's taco night. Come on in if you feel comfortable, or if you don't, do takeout, and reach them immediately and in a personalized way. Those are the restaurants that are succeeding right now.
Wow, that's being innovative. So I'm curious, do you see that bubbling up? Because we talked about restaurants being entrepreneurial. Do you see that bubbling up from within, or is this a new industry to help, or a part of an industry reaching out to restaurants?
When you and I talked a couple of weeks ago preparing for this, I mentioned that many of the trends we're seeing during COVID-19 were trends that had already kind of begun, but hadn't really caught on yet. So it was a lot more of the dining at home that was being delivered to you or being done via curbside. It was alcohol to go. I mean, in only 3 states prior to the pandemic starting could you get a cocktail to go. And now you can do it in 35 states, including the Commonwealth of Virginia. So you're seeing trends that were beginning at the micro level that have now just exploded. Outdoor dining. We were already seeing outdoor dining becoming a major development for the industry. Now it's essential. And if we as operators are learning anything in the restaurant space, habits that are beginning to develop now are sticking, and customers like them, and they're habits that are not going to go away. So restaurants that have higher tech platforms, restaurants that can do curbside takeout very easily, restaurants that have outdoor patio space, or even kind of these new igloo concepts we're seeing, those are going to stick because customers like them, even once we get past the pandemic.
Fantastic. Tony, you were going to make a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to draw a connection between something that Jonathan said and something that Mike is now really explaining a little bit more, and I don't know what his feelings are on, say, dark kitchens or ghost kitchens, but the resiliency of the restaurant operator in particular, through these times has been really impressive and very adaptive in the ability not just to take on technology, but also to completely change the metrics that impact them through real estate. Now they have completely changed operations where if I don't need a dining room, why go get real estate with dining space when I can still meet my customer virtually and just deliver that or have them come pick it up? So it's also changed location, and what I think it will have an even greater effect moving forward in the future as it relates to location and transportation is now you begin to reimagine what space you have as a real estate owner operator, and you can actually say, well, now particularly a restaurant that doesn't need dining rooms and people in it all the time really is a viable option for me because I can put it somewhere. I can have them turn part of parking that maybe I couldn't have, added a car to. Now it's a commissary for them to be able to go and store their goods and build, most of their main staples so they can streamline how they, fashion their kitchen. So it's just this kind of thematic thing going on about how people are beginning to evolve and deal with the challenges that are kind of put in front of
And
them.
how's that intersecting with the whole food truck growth that was happening before COVID?
I'll let Mike talk about it, but what I saw is like now people have an opportunity to say, well, I can go from owning the food truck to getting into brick and mortar in a much, tighter, efficient, economic way and making a decision. Do I really need to have dining space or not? So.
On the real estate front, without a doubt, you're going to see smaller footprints inside. Fine dining being a very large footprint area with no outdoor space and no takeout, that is probably a thing of the past for the most part. Restaurants that are smaller and more efficient and that are utilizing curbside takeout. We hear a lot about third-party delivery in the pandemic and how much that's exploded, and it certainly has. But when we survey operators and ask, what have you added during the pandemic for off-premises consumption? 2/3 of them say it's curbside to go. So third-party delivery is huge, but curbside to go has been the real winner here. And that's an advantage for Tysons, I would say, over DC or over other areas that are very, very built up. Because here you have the ability to make curbside work better because there is more room. Looking at the ghost kitchen concept, it's not a zero-sum game. You're seeing a lot of restaurants that are saying, I can do a ghost kitchen in addition to my additional offerings. And some of the more clever businesses we're seeing out there may have had certain items, for example, that their kitchen staff like to make for family meal. And they're now offering that to the public as a separately branded restaurant that is only virtual. It's really cool stuff. You're not seeing it everywhere, but you're seeing certain brick and mortar restaurants that online are actually 2 or 3 restaurants because they're offering different items under different brands under the same roof. That was a trend that was beginning to be there pre-COVID, but it's a concept now that really has exploded.
So can you describe or define exactly what a ghost kitchen is then?
It's a changing concept almost. Initially pre-pandemic, it was largely a restaurant that didn't exist in terms of a place where a customer could walk in and be served. It was a ghost kitchen. It was sometimes in an industrial warehouse where you'd see a number of different concepts sharing one industrial, almost commissary style kitchen. And there still is a lot of that. But when you saw restaurants have to be shut down during the pandemic back in March and April, you saw some of them that never really reopened their indoor dining space and said, hey, I can make it work, at least in the short term, just doing delivery, just doing takeout. And long term, I may downsize my actual location and go into a place that's cheaper and smaller. But it's virtual. It's the technology. It's existing in an ecosystem online where a lot of it is both word of mouth, but also how well do you advertise online? How can you build your online presence so that folks know about you?
It's fantastic. So, Alex, we've heard how their worlds are evolving. What have you learned through COVID? Because obviously people haven't been able to come to the theater that you can take to grow your business going forward.
Yeah, I think what you're hearing is companies and businesses really having to go back and rediscover what their roots are, what their core purpose is. And it may be in some cases technology is an answer that's going to help you and is going to be key. And I think a lot of theaters have tried to do that. I tend to think it's actually going to be the opposite in our field, and I think we're seeing some of this in the restaurant business as well, where really what theater is the reason that it's existed for as long as it has. It's an ancient art form of us getting around a fire and telling a story. And we've gotten really good at using technology to tell that story in really exciting and big ways. But I think what we're starting to discover is we can take that out of the theater to some extent. It isn't a thing that I think transfers particularly well into the online world, which is where a lot of folks are going. And I think what we're starting to discover is it can go back to its roots that way. I was at a show this weekend that was literally around a campfire with actors social distance, 6 feet apart, and the audience around them. And it was fantastic and captivating and community building and exactly what theater is. And I think we're discovering that. And I think as restaurants start to realize, I don't have to create this atmosphere in my dining room. I can go out into the street. And in fact, people like that better. I think we're going to find some of that too, that our space is always going to be a core place for performance, but there's going to be other places where we can come to you, where we can be back out in the community and we can gather in our symbolic or maybe actual campfires and caves and start to tell stories again. And I think that's going to be a really important part of coming back together as we move through this pandemic.
That's really cool. And you made me think about just even some industries that really aren't creative like yours, but have needed to be creative and innovate, like groceries. Grocery stores will always have brick and mortar because they can introduce new products and they can, it's a place for them to build their brand. But in today's day and age, they've got to be able to get out to the people in order to be successful. So I know also we talked about the importance of work in this connectiveness is by neighborhood. So I think that you're so well represented at both ends, and we've talked about the borough as well. So important to think about the workers as well as the livability there. So I'm looking at the clock, and we're going to pause a minute on work, and we are going to go to another message from one of our sponsors, and then we'll come back for our final segment around play. So thank you. Don't go away.
Home to 260,000 square feet of restaurants, retail, grocery, and entertainment, the Borough Retail Program is the neighborhood's biggest placemaking accomplishment. Anchored on one side by the East Coast's largest Whole Foods market, and on the other by a 14-screen movie theater, the Borough Retail has been carefully curated with everything from neighborhood-serving nail and hair salons to destination chef-driven restaurants.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Now we're going to get to the really fun stuff. We're going to talk about play here. So I'm going to ask our panelists to really talk about 3 questions, and we're just going to make this a conversation. How you define play and why you think play is important. How you do see play evolving in Tysons, and what's the most creative application for play that you see anywhere. And I'm sure our audience is wondering, too, every time Jonathan speaks, because there's some renderings behind him. So we're going to give him some time to really talk through Capital One's vision. So I'm not going to start with you, actually. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with you, Mike. And if you could talk to us about what do you see as play? And
yeah, I think play, especially as it relates to restaurants, it's having a scene. It's having the ability to go out and have a night of fun or an afternoon of fun or a brunch of fun or whatever time period it is, but having the ability to really get what you want and having a diversity of different options. So if I think about some of the most vibrant and fun corridors around town, but also around the country, it's places where you can go out and you can have a drink at one restaurant, but then hop over to a different restaurant that is whatever cuisine you might want and have dinner there, and then go somewhere else and meet up with some friends elsewhere. But there's something for everyone, and there's just such diversity. And I think Tysons is beginning to get there, and every additional restaurant that we get around here is essential because, having the ability to make really a quote-unquote night of it, of being able to go to various places and not, you may have your favorite restaurant, but you have, 5 or so that you really like and that you can hop around to. I think having that scene and having that diversity of choices really is important because that makes it a destination so that your friends want to come visit you in the area if they're not living in the area, but also gives you as an individual who lives here, different options, so it's not always the same thing.
So Tony, you've seen a variety of places growing up in Reston, in one sense of play there, and then living in the district. How do you define play?
I mean, for me, play is really best defined through how do you choose to entertain yourselves. I think it comes with a myriad of options. It really also has to encompass things that allow the people within those particular communities to experience whatever is the culture of that community, whatever will be the opportunities to figure out how diverse the options are to entertain themselves. It could be food, it could be green space, it could be the opportunity to go out and ride your bike at your leisure and get your exercise in. It could be being able to just simply hang out, and it could be going to see a play or a drive-in movie, but it is the ability to know that your options are really kind of limitless in terms of how you want to go entertain yourself and also express yourself at the same time.
Great. Alex?
I think it's really important. I have to say, I think we instinctively know what it is, right? Because our lives are as hard as they are right now and have been. We spend so much time with work. We spend so much time getting in those times when not at work, getting sort of the essential things that we need to get done, whether it's for our family, whether it's oftentimes it's extended work, it's groceries, it's whatever we need. And then we have these moments where we connect, where we are outside of that, and we realize, oh, that's what it's all for. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. The other stuff, my priorities have shifted on me entirely, right? And we know that. We've all felt it. And we let it go, and we get it back, and we let it go, and we get it back. And I think it's been especially hard during this time of COVID. And I think it is the thing that builds community and it builds our souls. And I think that too often when we're thinking about what we need in our world, we let that part go. And self-care is sort of a trendy word right now. But really what we're saying is the things that matter, our priorities, our time with our families, our time with our friends, meaningful experiences that we work for, not the other way around. And I think that sense of, if we want to call it play, is actually the most important of the three things. We do the other things so that we can have those meaningful experiences with the people that matter to us.
I love what you just said there, and I do think that COVID has really helped. I know, again, having spent over 30 years here, that it's a very driven work culture around here, and people work a lot of hours and they have a lot of extra things that they do. And it was a few years ago, a friend of mine from out of the area said, so what do you do for fun?
Right.
And honestly, I had to really pause. And I said, well, I like everything that I do. And she said, well, give me your normal week. And I started talking it through, and I realized it was all related to either work or volunteerism, which I love as well. But it made me start to prioritize and think, okay, if I had a blank canvas, what would I do for fun? And then COVID hit. And it was great, though, because I started hiking more. I really became serious about running and walking and adding things back into my life. And I hope that we all can learn from that. And as we redesign our workforces, our work days, and then our play, that we can all remember what, those things are that we identified.
I really think it's going to be key. I mean, I think we've all had the experience whether it's a night out or a vacation, or even for me, it's been being home for dinner every night with my son instead of here at the theater. And those moments where we say, wait, how did I get so off track that this feels like something that is deprioritized, that this feels special to be with my family instead of at the theater? And I think And we all know that. We all have that drive and that stress. And taking that time to recognize what it means, for me, the magic of what it means of being with 200, 150 other people and being transported to a new world and to live and breathe with a story at the same time is an opportunity to step outside of all of the stress and all of the things that really aren't supposed to be our priority, and to be together with folks that matter. And I think we are being forced to rediscover that right now. I think it's really important that we hang on to that. I think when we talk about what will life return to, that's one of the things that we really have to hold on to.
Beautifully said. I think integrating the fun into our daily life is really important for us going forward. So Jonathan, talk to us about what you've been able to create at Capital One.
Yeah, well, I would go back and define play in exactly the same words that these three gentlemen have done so. But I think that one element of that is, again, personal choice. You know, while play is this broad topic, we each enjoy and play in very different ways. And having unique spaces that are as unique as the individual are what really makes the community come together and create spaces where we can all play. If I think about your question, you know, what's one of the most unique applications of play? I'm probably a little bit biased, but I think the illustration here to my, I guess, left it would be, is really that. This is the perch that's on top of our Block C development, on top of Capital One Hall, on top of the Wegmans. We talk about different elements. On the perch, there'll be a beer garden. There'll be a stage, an amphitheater, if you will. There's public art. That art is interactive. You can actually play and engage with the art itself. There's bocce courts. There's a great lawn. There's a small dog park. And, you know, packed in all this space is a pop-up area where we're actually craning, retrofitting and craning these old antique buses and campers to the roof and creating an environment where we can rotate food, we can rotate drinks, we can rotate different retail offerings within the space and create a diversity of spaces, a diversity of foods, a diversity of ideas, right, that bring the community together and allow people the opportunity to play in their own definition of the word.
Well, that's fantastic. I love you use the word rotating, obviously for food, but that really brings me to flexibility of opportunities for play. Clearly, as Saul was talking about, there is a master plan for Tysons, but cities have to be iterative in that they will evolve on their own. What do you think is important for the planners to think about, and for Saul's group to really think about, so that we have that flexibility and ability to integrate play into the neighborhoods? Alex?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. I think it's a really important question. I think it's one that we're just starting to deal with in our specific region. You know, one of the things that I've talked to folks about for a long time is that we, while Tysons is its own thing, we live in a market that has many different jurisdictions and many different competitions, right? And for example, we talked about Arts Fairfax, which is such an important organization, and which has the funding that is about an eighth of Montgomery County and a 16th of Washington, D.C. We just haven't embraced the priority of it here in Fairfax County and Tysons in the way that we need to. The state of Virginia is 42nd in arts funding, while Washington, D.C. is number 1 and Maryland is number 6. So we can say it's important and we need it and we believe it, but there is no reasonable reason for it to start here as opposed to over the bridge in either direction, or even into a place like Arlington County, which has so much more funding and so much support. So it doesn't just happen organically. It needs support, it needs prioritizing, and it needs to be backed up with real meat on the bones. And I think that's something that's starting to become part of the conversation in Fairfax and in Tysons, but we're not there yet. And we live in a market where it is so easy to cross the border and see that support in real time. So I think it is something that needs to be supported organically, but it is something that needs to be supported with meaningful, real action as well.
Yeah, we've started to see some proffers. Obviously, you're working with a developer. You have partners in your development as well that allow for some of this to happen, but you still need to come up with funding for your own build-out.
And I want to say, I think that would have been unthinkable 6 years ago when I got to first stage. And so it is changing. I want to acknowledge that I think those proffers wouldn't, that kind of real commitment wouldn't have been possible 6 years ago. And so we're heading in the right direction there. And it will change our homes and our businesses in that way when we put it as a priority that way.
Wow, that's great. That's really great. So talk to me a little more about flexibility of space as the neighborhoods are built out and what you think is important from a play perspective to keep in mind for the developers and stuff. What are you seeing, Jonathan, since yours
I'll take that. I think that we do have to realize that there's a Tysons that is now and a Tysons that's the future. And, it will build, it will grow, but we need to be mindful to make sure that we're creating spaces that, are reflective of our current state, but also that we take some risks, take some opportunity to try to create these vibrant, unique spaces for the future. So I think it's important, and I think the comprehensive plan does a lot of this, is outlining through some of the proffers, like you mentioned, to outline some criteria that need to be held true, for all developers to create some equity within the space, and to really challenge developers to think out of the box, and to partner with other community groups to really listen and understand, what is the need, what is the gap, and to come up with creative solutions to try to bridge that.
That's great. So, Mike, you talked a lot about the restaurants and the creative side of the restaurant industry. What do you think needs to be around restaurants to help support them?
I think spaces that offer arts, spaces that offer retail, spaces that offer the ability for you to come and just hang out are really important, and that's an essential part of this of creating a vibrant dining scene. It can't just be restaurants. It has to be a variety of different abilities to play, because while I love eating at restaurants and I could make an entire night of just going restaurant to restaurant, that's not for everybody. Some people might want to just have dinner and then go see a show, or go and do something outside. I think you have to have a diversity of different play options around restaurants. You have to have restaurants and lots of them, but you have to have additional other play opportunities, or else people aren't going to want to come back or aren't going to want to live there because it's almost monolithic. It's just one thing.
Yeah. So we have a question from someone in the audience, and this is for you, Jonathan. Deborah is asking if Capital One is looking at their fee model for the hall and renting it out to nonprofits specifically who are struggling right now.
Yeah, a great question. I would say that broadly we're looking at COVID and what the implications are on for Capital One Hall in a lot of different ways. I mean, you can imagine, as Alex can represent, that the performing arts industry, the arts industry in general, has been one very hard hit by this. So I think all options are things that we're evaluating in terms of how the facility opens, when it opens. But relative to the nonprofit access, there is a very deliberate proffer an agreement with Fairfax County that was worked out for quite some time in terms of how the community is able, through Arts Fairfax, to access the venue at discounted rates. Through those discussions, it was really important that there actually be a charge, a facility use fee for the groups to use the facility. It's much discounted than what it costs an outside organization to come in. But it does hold the user responsible for the space. You don't end up with errant bookings that get canceled. It gives them a little bit of meaningful investment to make them feel like they're part of the venue, and part of the operations of the space.
Great. And so are you actively partnering right now with
We do. We actually have our first season of county programming in place. Those dates, I don't think we're quite yet able to announce, but they have been decided. They are all on paper, and it's a pretty wide array of programming. We have dance troupes, we have symphonies, we have the Washington West Film Festival will be hosting an event in this space. So it's going to be a great kind of diverse offering that we're excited to unveil here in the coming months, and hopefully are able to open in the fall of next year.
Well, I think we're all hoping that by next year we'll be in a much better place. So not everybody answered the question about what you think would be the most creative play use in Tysons. So what's coming up for you? Tony, how about you?
I have to be honest, I don't come to Tysons that much.
He's a truth teller.
Yeah, you gotta be honest these days. I think the things that I have been most looking forward to, actually, I did want to come to the drive-in movie theater at Capital One because I just thought in times of COVID you can't go to a movie theater anymore. You can't have that proximity to people, and it's been so long since I've gone to a drive-in movie theater. I was like, that is a really innovative way to get me back out and see movies. Whether it's Capital One or others, I think that's a really great way for people to take advantage of, adding a new entertainment way that we can't do anymore back into the mix. But the other thing I would say, and I know Capital One has a beer garden, I know others have beer gardens here in Tysons, I think those things really present one of the best opportunities for people to play for two reasons, not for the obvious reason because it's outdoor, you can drink and you can eat. But outdoor spaces also change a way that you can now be collaborative in terms of what you can do. Sure, it's the restaurant space, but it could also potentially be the art space where, maybe a play goes on and maybe you use the things that you couldn't do again indoors as a way to go get people back out to a particular place. It also is a collaboration that helps restaurants meet new customers that were probably not going to be the customers they would have been able to meet in this time, but moving forward, once we're out of this particular issue, now all of a sudden I think you put that idea in people's heads that, oh wow, that person's customer can also be my customer and vice versa, and I think it's just a unique way to bring people together.
Oh, that's a very great point. Thank you. Alex?
Yeah, I think there are, as I say, I think there are a lot of exciting ways. Right before the pandemic hit, we were in conversations with a local bar to stage part of our solo festival, our Logan Festival for solo performance inside of the bar, and where we sit around, the play takes place in the bar, where we sit around the bar and have drinks made for us and have stories told for us. And I think that kind of repurposing, and we get that, right? We have Wolf Trap here in Tysons, right? And we all know what that experience is of sitting out there. And I think we all probably, many of us, I'll speak for myself, it almost doesn't matter what's performing out there, right? We like being in the lawn, we like having the picnic, we like being near our friends and community and taking it all in. And I think that model is expandable to so many of the locations out here and so many of the new locations out here as well. And so I think we're going to see innovative use that way of music and storytelling and theater and art and food and restaurants all coming together to create experience for us in ways that are exciting and new.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mike, you can have the last word here because we're getting ready to close out the panel discussion.
I would love to see some additional spaces that combine immersive events and food. What am I talking about here? If you look at what's happened with COVID in terms of restaurants doing virtual events, virtual cooking demonstrations, virtual mixology sessions, you've seen a lot of folks who said, I always liked being served and having food. I want to be part of that process now. You can do that in person, and there's a real opportunity once we get past this pandemic to have those immersive experiences in person and bring folks together back around the table.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. This was terrific, and it was wonderful for me to have the opportunity to meet with you, and I'm sure our guests this afternoon are really grateful, and we'll have some virtual applause here, so thank you. Now, before we close out with our final keynote speaker, we're going to pause for another sponsor. Thank you.
Good day. I am Victor Hoskins, President and CEO of the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority. Tysons is the largest commercial district in Fairfax County, home of Fortune 500 companies, energetic startups, amazing shopping, and great restaurants. And because of all that, it is a hugely important component of our economy. That is why my office is proud to be part of this event today. We promote Fairfax County as one of the best places in the world to work, live, play, and learn. All the changes happening now in Tysons and those plans for the future will make this an even more dynamic and exciting destination. Thank you for joining the conversation today.
Welcome back. We're just about ready to wrap up in the next half hour, and we have the perfect person to do that for you. Victor Hoskins, who's the president and CEO of the Fairfax County EDA, will do our closing keynote. Victor came to the EDA here in Fairfax County in August of 2019 from Arlington County. He was very famous in Arlington County for landing Amazon. He also landed a whole lot of other companies that are now corporate citizens in Arlington County: Nestle, Grant Thornton, Deloitte, and O-Power Oracle. We are thrilled to have Victor here in Fairfax County. And one of the first things he did when he got here is really create a virtual EDA. And that takes leadership to make something like that happen. So we heard from Saul about the master plan earlier. We heard from our panelists about how they envision what's transforming Tysons right now. So now we'd like to hear from Victor about where we're going. And it sure would be nice if he could just tell us a whole lot of inside scoops so that we know where we're going here in Tysons. Victor?
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. I have to say that Fairfax County is very fortunate to have such an amazing place as Tysons. But I'm sure back in 2010, when the Board of Supervisors and everyone in the community was looking at this, it probably looked like what Thomas Jefferson said, an opportunity, but it was dressed up in overalls and it looked like a lot of work. And it was a lot of work. When you think about it, Fairfax County now has Tysons as a 28.1 million square foot office market. That's out of our 119 million square foot office market in Fairfax County. We are the second largest office market in the country. The only one that comes close to us is, and that's a county, is Orange County, California. And you are our center. You are our urban center with a great vacancy rate of only 13.4%. And a development pipeline that anyone would envy. You have 60 million square feet coming forward. And it's always been an incredible location, right between DC and IED, right off the Beltway, with wonderful, incredibly undergirding of great education in the region, great safety, wonderful communities. But thanks to this vision that the Board of Supervisors adopted in 2010, Tysons is transforming into an urban, walkable, transit-oriented mix of uses, upscale residences, new streets, new street grids, amenities, and a lot of the things that your panel just talked about. Those places that bring energy to a location. This is one of America's largest redevelopment projects. And it is no mistake that it is extraordinarily important to us. Tysons has great transportation with the Metro Silver Line. I remember when the Silver Line was not here. Now you have 4 stops. You have incredible Fortune 500 companies, which include Booz Allen, Capital One, Freddie Mac, and Hilton. Tysons will continue to be attractive to corporate locations, largely because Tysons Partnership and the private sector have joined together to make it an even greater place. Major initiatives by the private sector that are turning Tysons into a far more incredible place, really very different from office parks. When you look at the Capital One campus, and you just talked about it, the Wegmans, the 1,500 seat Performing Arts Center, a real community coming up, the Borough, Whole Foods, movie complexes, apartments, the Lumen, a 31-story office residential tower, the Mather Senior Living Complex. These are all things that are really transforming Tysons into an incredibly true downtown. And one of the things that is really interesting is this pandemic is really causing Tysons actually to be in an advantageous position in that it will be attracting locations because many corporations are now looking at this hub and spoke model where they have a center location in a metro area and then move out satellite locations to the suburbs to reduce the commute of many of their team. And we're fortunate to have a location with multiple assets like Tyson's and these corporate headquarters that are already here. I can't really speak any further without talking about some of the things that's happened since COVID-19. Even during this pandemic, we're seeing businesses located in Tyson's. BBB, national programs, just located in Tyson's. CBRE noted that in Q2, that Northern Virginia was the hottest office market in the United States. And that was led by the Dulles Corridor, and that includes Tyson's. Fairfax County is one of the hottest residential markets during COVID because of our incredible suburban home inventory. As a matter of fact, a recent report showed that sales were up 28% recently. Our Q2 announcements of 41 companies from our organization, fully a third of those are located in Tyson's now. We've worked very hard since COVID-19 to begin to work with not just large corporations, but with small businesses and helping them connect with information, resources, technical assistance, and financing. Fairfax County has allotted $58 million in CARES funds for programs like the Fairfax RISE grant program and the microloan program. And I have to take my hat off to the chair of the Board of Supervisors and the supervisors and the county executive for this incredible program that has reached over 4,800 businesses with grants and technical assistance. And fully 70% of the recipients of this program were minority businesses, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned firms. All of these firms were under 50 employees. And these were the people, these were the organizations, these were the teams, the employers that could not access the PPP funds and the EIDL funds. And again, I want to thank the leadership of our Board of Supervisors, Chairman McKay, for the courage that he's shown, and the Board of Supervisors for supporting him, and the county executive for executing with his incredible team. And what's really great about this, it has gone further. The state has taken this Rebuild Virginia program and they've increased it to 100 million. They've taken their grants and they've moved them up to 100,000 per company. And in addition to that, on the federal level, our companies in Fairfax County have received $2.1 billion in the Paycheck Protection Program. And these were unprecedented steps. But there is something that we really have to conquer, and I think Tyson's is going to help us conquer that, as well as our other urban centers, but Tyson's in particular because it is already like a downtown. We recognize that talent is a major pain point for many companies. They can find real estate, but to find great talent is very difficult. We started our talent initiative, which was supported by funding from the County Board of Supervisors, again, with their great vision, with their great courage, and it's totally transforming how we do our work. We have a website called workinnorthernvirginia.com that really provides updated job openings in Northern Virginia. Right now, there are over 104,000 openings in Northern Virginia, and it includes all 10 jurisdictions in Northern Virginia, not just Fairfax, all 10 jurisdictions, because we're winning this together. Since we cannot do in-person interviews, we actually pivoted to virtual events, virtual career events, and we presented 3 virtual career job fairs ourselves, and we sponsored 2 others, one with the Virginia Hispanic Chamber and one with Women in Technology. We connected over 4,000 job seekers, with dozens of opportunities at Fortune 500 companies, and also with universities. Actually over 30 universities, which include 7 historically Black colleges. We have also focused on upskilling and reskilling programs at the Northern Virginia Community College and George Mason University. And we believe our companies have one of the greatest opportunities to tap into the 60 universities and the 400,000 undergraduates that are in our institutions right now. If you look at Tyson's today, you may be thinking, oh, it's going to be difficult going forward. And I was talking earlier today in the quote of a great philosopher, character is formed in the crucible of adversity. And in that crucible, the heat is so hot that it burns off the dross and it leaves a pure metal. In this case, that metal is character. And the character of Fairfax and the character of Tysons and the character of our nation is really going to be our power going forward. To me, I'm extraordinarily optimistic. I can see Tysons rivaling downtown Chicago. I can see Tysons rivaling downtown Boston. I can see Tysons rivaling downtown Los Angeles. To me, that vision is not hard to see. And the reason why is because so much groundwork has been laid. And some people think that COVID-19 is going to take us off track. Well, I was listening to an interview by Doris Kearns Goodwin the other day, and she said something very powerful. She said, nothing can stop our nation. We are resilient. During World War II, we produced one tank every 4 minutes, one plane every 7 minutes, and one ship every day. And you think about that. Oh, we will distribute this vaccine and we will get back to work. And for those of you who don't believe we're going back to the office, I have a word for you. Yes, we are. Now, we may go back differently and we may go back more spaced, but we are going back to the office because we need to be around people, because it's around people where ideas are generated, where there's a collision of ideas and opportunities come forth. This is one of the greatest regions for innovation in the country, and we need our people to collaborate. And I am proud and I feel lucky to be part of the team that's bringing it forward. And I believe Tysons is going to be part of that future.
Hello, I'm Don Frickel, and I'm honored to be the current president of Share Incorporated. Share Incorporated is an all-volunteer, nonprofit organization dedicated to helping the less fortunate in Great Falls, McLean, Pimmitt Hills, and parts of Falls Church.
Our operations are totally dependent on volunteers and private donations since we have no paid staff, no contractors, and we receive no government funding.
Thanks to the generosity of our donors and volunteers, last year we provided assistance to more than 1,500 households containing about 4,000 family members, mostly children.
We live in a very expensive area. My husband is a hard worker and I work too, but it's not enough for paying the bills.
My fiancée was diagnosed with brain cancer. And shortly after that, when she was going through her treatment, I found out that I had a faulty heart valve and a bum kidney. Shortly after that, after I came home from the hospital, she passed. And it was just me and my son. What more could I lose? And it was my job next because of the recession.
Share's most visible activity is our food pantry and used clothing room. These facilities operate in donated space at the McLean Baptist Church.
It's a service that allows people to maintain their dignity. It's a service that they're not afraid to come and ask for help.
It's very helpful. Every month, I come 2 times a month because I really need the help.
Share currently provides 1,000 bags of food and 225 bags of used clothing to clients per month. Since virtually all of these materials are donated by the community, it takes a large number of food drives and volunteer hours to maintain these levels of support.
The thought of anyone hungry, particularly children, breaks my heart. So food is where I felt called to serve, and that's where I've been for the last 12 years.
Share provides financial assistance to distressed households primarily to ward off evictions and utility shutoffs.
They can pay part of the rent, but not all of the rent. Or they can't pay the water bill, but they'll pay the electric bill, and then sooner or later it catches up with them.
I got a phone call from one of the folks at Share, and they said, she said on the other line, she says, Tim, we'd like to help you get your gas back on. We had a little heater in the back, and that's where we'd bunker down at, you know. And now that the house had heat blowing out the registers again, you take that stuff for granted, you know, we all do. But when something happens in your life and you lose the basic needs, you know, it's great to have someone that step in and help you.
SHARE operates a furniture program through which it provides donated furniture to needy families. Each Saturday, volunteer crews operate 2 trucks to conduct these activities. Last year, we made more than 500 pickups and deliveries, providing furnishings to more than 200 households, including about 600 household members, mostly children. SHARE provides rebuilt computers and printers to client families with school-aged children. This work is conducted by technically qualified high school-age volunteers.
More and more FCPS and other local area students have been requesting laptops because they need them for class. In fact, a lot of our classes have homework done online, so having a laptop is critical.
Our technology group also helps maintain our website and our client database. SHARE also runs a number of special events for clients, including food distributions at Thanksgiving and a major holiday event in December, including music, light refreshments, a visit by Santa Claus, and gifts tailored to family needs. We also distribute school supplies and provide haircuts to children of client families in August so that students are ready for school.
What's unique about SHARE is that we really get to know our clients, and so it's easy for us to help find resources for individual people rather than just general resources.
I really, really appreciate the help.
It was a hand up, what SHARE did for me. It wasn't just a handout. It's a difference.
From the canned food drives to the the clothing drive that they have to the furniture donations that we get, there are numerous ways that you can participate in the various SHARE programs and give back to the community.
I just want to say thank you and thank you and thank you, always, always, yeah.
Donations that we receive come from participating faith communities, individuals, local businesses, and institutions like the McLean Community Foundation. Just as important as funding, though, is our ongoing need for new volunteers.
Volunteering, it's just not all about helping other people. It really does have the effect of improving and enhancing your life in many, many ways.
When you help a family get back on their feet, you're helping the community because they're giving back. I really do believe that.
And it's very gratifying. It is. It's so gratifying to see people. What can I do?
If you think you might be interested, please check out our website or contact us directly. SHARE provides training and orientation for new volunteers. Thank you very much for supporting SHARE.
I came to the United States 3 years ago. I didn't know any English. And I was at home most of the time. I didn't go out or anything, but when I got to school, there was when the real test started. When all my teachers were talking to me, nobody knew Spanish, and the people who knew Spanish preferred to speak in English, and I completely understand, because this is America at the end. But it was really hard because I didn't feel like myself. For a moment, I felt like I didn't fit in, no way. I was just like home, school, school, home. And yes, I knew I lived here near Coolmore and everything, but I really didn't went outside or try to do anything for my community. So my friend, one of my friends I met her through the ESOL program too. So she told me that she was working here. This year I decided to come, and things has changed a lot. I feel like I'm part of the community now. I don't know what we will be without this center, because they are just a place in which I just can come after school and just feel like something is okay for once, even if everything is going or falling apart on the outside. Here is a place in which I feel safe. There are things that I do here that actually matters, like life skills and leadership development and all those things. So right now I'm working in this career research, we can call it like that. So we are trying to find a job that we want to work on. We are finding some companies that we want to work for, and we are trying to find the descriptions and all the things that we need to get there. I'm a senior at high school. I'm gonna be the first generation student. So yeah, I'm gonna be the first in my family to pursue a post-secondary education. I want to become a prosecutor. That's my goal, and I want to help. I want to give back to my community, not only because they have helped me, but I think that we need more people to stand up and defend the defenseless. So the second story, the teen centers, everything is just, I don't know what life will be like without them.
I moved to 2015 in the US. After I came here, we have a little bit problem with my stepmother. So me and my dad, we talked. He told me to move out. And then he got like a house from, I think he knows her. She's not like really my cousin, but he knows her. And then he asked us to live with her. Then I went to her house, it was a living room. And then I used to pay her like $350 a month. And I started working like every day. I can say like every day. I don't have enough time to do my homework, to study. I don't even have to go to the library. I have to graduate from high school. That was my hope, no matter how it happened. But thanks God, like I got second story that helped me like to achieve that my goal. When I found out I got accepted, I was so excited with it. I was really excited. After I got accepted, like one of my case manager, her name is Crystal. So she was like working hard with me. She helped me to find house near to like close to my school. The second story for me is like a family. Like I never talked with my dad like 2 or 3 years. Never ever. Never texted, he never called me. So whenever I need help, whenever I need help, the support, I just talk to the second story with my case manager.
Well, I tend to see myself, or I try to see myself as a mentor rather than a social worker. I try to level up with them and try to give them all the advice they can, because I've been there, done that. So just sitting down with them and going through whatever issues they have at the moment, helping them brainstorm ideas, bringing up suggestions on how they can do things better, teaching them life skills, it's very important. Getting the kids to be more independent. Because if you look at their situation, they're homeless at a young age, they're still trying to finish high school.
She's taught me a lot of things, to be honest. I didn't know how to use a credit card. I didn't know how to use respect, be on time. I started saving money, started getting my car. I never had a car 2 years ago. Now I have a car.
I would say the priority, the most important thing is second story, being able to pay for the rent. Because if you think about it, you go to school full time and you can't really work more than 30 hours a week. And that doesn't allow them to make enough to be able to pay for rent.
They pay me rent at least 70%, which means I don't work a lot of hours. And I'm gonna have time to study or to do my homework to bring my grade up. And I'm gonna have time to talk to my teachers after school.
Abel has always been focused on school and his education, because to him it's like, if I don't get my diploma, it's like I can't do anything, I need to have my diploma so I can go to college, get higher education so I can get the job and the life that I want. And I think that's great that he just sees the big picture, and he's been really focused.
I want to be a web developer, and I want to have like a great job and help my family.
Belle, I would say is definitely confident. He knows what he's doing. He's very smart. Over the year and a half that we worked together, I can say I've seen him evolve and take more control of his life. Yeah.
When I came here, I had a goal. I have a big goal. Just getting a good job and helping my family. It's a big support with me. It's a big support. It's a lot of things changed, to be honest. It's a lot of.
Lilian Ciesa. I have my two kids, my two girls. I was married. You know, everybody dream with have a perfectly married, but unfortunately, things happen. The father of my kids, he left me with my two girls when my little one was 9 months. So it was very tough. And that is when I started to have all the challenging things in my life. I think I didn't believe in myself in the moment. I didn't trust in myself that I will be able to do it. Bright Path is a big help for the families like me. After they know about all my situation, they make an appointment and I went to their office. And that is when they start to help me, first of all, with emergency food. Then we start to talking about my financial situation. When I met Claudia, my financial mentor, she make an Excel spreadsheet with all my bills, and then we will review at the end of the month. I tell you the truth, I didn't realize how important was that because, you know, this is the only way I can see how I will survive every month with the amount that I bring to my house. And sometimes she was very tough with me, and I say thank you to her because that is how she teach me. Then I went to 3 workshops and Bright Paths. I went to the healthy eatings that helped me how, you know, to make correct food, healthy food for my kids. I went to another important workshop I really like it about how to deal with the stress. Then the other workshop was about my resume. That was the first one because I did have a resume but was very old. And Sally helped me. She helped me, you know, to make a new one. That is how they helped me in many, many things, Bright Path. I can say now that I believe now in myself. I know I can do it. I didn't imagine that I will remarry. I think, you know, everything happened for a reason. I met my husband in one of the tough times in my life. Now my family is growing. Now we are 7. My husband has 3 kids too. You know, sometimes I am emotionally when I am remember what's going with me in the past. But I think I made it. And I made it thanks to Bright Path. As a single mom that I was in the moment, I don't know what it will do without Bright Path's help. I hope all the companies, organizations, or everybody still donated because you don't imagine how much they helped me to survive. Thank you for everything that Bright Path and each person of the company did for myself and for my girls.